Alrighty, guys, in this day of reboots and remakes and sequels and spin-offs, I suppose it was only inevitable that one of the modern, and by modern I mean in the 2000s, one of the most classic and beloved sitcoms of the 2000s, The Office, would get a spin-off or a sequel at some point. It's been talked about before. There are shows like Seinfeld, there are shows like Friends, or, even The West Wing that you just can't really do sequel series to with the original cast. And, it'd be a little harder to do a sequel show to Friends that they tried with Joey, for example, but it would just be a little bit harder. But The Office, I think out of all the shows, it just seemed like The Office would be the one to get another season or a revival or a spinoff. And lo and behold, we read a couple articles last week talking about how the Office, or The Paper rather, the show that we're going to talk about here today, is getting a season 2. And The Paper really was spawned out of the idea that PEACOCK was the streaming service that NBC, which owns The Office, was making, and they wanted some content, and so they talked to Greg Daniels, who is the co-creator of the US Office, and he found a good idea, and he decided to make The Paper. So The Paper, which already, like we talked about before last week, is going to get a season 2, has finished its run, and by its run, I mean all 10 episodes have dropped on Peacock at once, so it's still, even though it's a sitcom, it's still deciding to go with the binge model, which I think it is what it is for this first season, but I really would like for it to, it doesn't have to adhere to the weekly release model if they don't want to for sitcoms, because that's always how it's been done, and I honestly might prefer that, but if they don't want to do that, that's fine. I know that some shows have been doing things like dropping 2 or 3 or even 4 episodes at once. I feel like that would be more fun for next season, but anyways, I digress. We're here to talk about season 1 of The Paper. So this is going to be a spoiler discussion, and the reason it's going to be a spoiler discussion, even though the show is pretty new and chances are not all of you have seen the show by now, I'll give my quick non-spoiler thoughts at the very beginning of this, and then I'll delineate when the spoilers will begin. But the reason it's spoilers is because I just have a lot of things to say about the show that frankly I didn't know about this show before going into it, and I think it would be beneficial for you guys to just go into the show completely cold. Other than maybe having seen a trailer or 2. That's how I went into the show. I didn't know any of the characters' names other than maybe Ned, who is played by Domhnall. I cannot say that name. Domhnall Gleeson, the lead character, the editor-in-chief of The Paper. And that's obviously, again, I went into it very, 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 very fresh, and so I think I benefited more from that. Non-spoiler thoughts before we dive into the spoiler discussion. I think, and it's interesting, right? Because we all have revisionist history in our minds, and that's totally fine. But our favorite sitcoms, our favorite shows, The Office, Friends, Parks and Rec, or whatever, we all are like, oh, brilliant shows, and always good until the very end when they kind of tail off. I think most of these shows, their first seasons were not that well received. The Office first season, I don't think I like it particularly much. I haven't seen the entire show, The Office, in quite a while, but the first season is just weird. It's odd. Parks and Rec, I haven't seen that show in its entirety, but that show even more so, I know is maligned the first season, is because people are just like, what, this first season is just so different and not what this show ended up being, right? The show found its footing in season 2. A lot of people say you could watch Parks and Rec just starting from season 2. So I think whatever the case might be, we're getting a season 2 of The Paper, and like I said in my last week's segment, short of me absolutely hating this series, I was going to give it a chance in season 2 no matter what. Because, again, season 1, these sitcoms are just finding their footing. They're just trying to find their way. That being said, I was really pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed this first season of The Paper. Yes, the Office comparisons are going to be natural. You're going to find yourself thinking about, oh, this character is kind of like Michael Scott. Oh, this is sort of maybe the Jim Pam storyline. Oh, this is, you're going to find those. It's just going to happen. But the sooner you can get those out of your head, the sooner you can just embrace what the show is, it's really good. Greg Daniels knows how to make a show, a sitcom, where there are hilarious parts. This show is funny. I laughed out loud a few times every episode. It's funny. It's really funny. But also, there's an emotional core. That's one of the things that he's just so good at. Instead of just making a purely comedic show, just a stand-up SNL sketch, for example, these shows that he makes, The Office, and then, his writing team like Mike Schur, Parks and Rec, and all those kinds of shows, The Good Place, those shows have real depth and real heart and emotion in them. This show is no different. It's funny. It's set in the same, it's set rather in a different setting, but in the same style as The Office. And there are some really fun, I'll say, Easter eggs and connections here and there. If you've seen the trailer, you know a big one, but If you haven't seen the trailer, then yeah, it's set in the same world as The Office, and you'll kind of see how that works out. But again, I think that this show does a really good job of taking the things that work well from The Office, putting it in a new setting. And some people have said, I've seen it online, and I kind of agree with this, that this show is sort of the best hybrid version of Parks and Rec and The Office. And I agree with that. And the best part of it, that is, there is tons of room for the show to grow. I think that this first season, while very solid for a first season, I think that this show can continue to evolve and grow into something really special. And I'm excited to see what that looks like. So I wholeheartedly recommend the paper for those of you guys who have not seen it yet. And I think that it's going to be a very worthwhile watch for you guys who are big fans of The Office as well. So let's dive into some spoilery details now. If you guys have seen The Office or seen the paper, or if you just don't care about spoilers, then welcome. Let's dive right into it. I think the show is really funny. I think that including Oscar, honestly, I was a little skeptical at first. I was like, is this just going to be a one-episode cameo that they're revealing in the trailer? Are there going to be other Office cameos? Nope, there aren't. And that's totally fine. I think Oscar Nunez, he plays a great role in this show as just sort of a side character that serves as a connective tissue. But if you haven't even seen The Office, you wouldn't know. I mean, it'd be totally fine. There was some subtle connections, some hints here and there that he's from The Office show. He gives little hints here and there without name dropping Michael Scott. But again, I think it's a really fun connective tissue to have in there, and he's a really good character to just kind of add to the background of the show. It took a couple episodes. Like the first 2 episodes, I will admit, it takes a little while for me to get invested in the show. That being said, I think by episode 3, I remember this, episode 3, because I watched this over a few days. Episode 3 was where it really clicked for me. And it's where I started to get really invested in all the side characters, like Nicole, like Detrick. Like, there are a few, I'm not going to lie, that I think didn't get as much time as others, but that's totally fine. I mean, again, in other sitcoms, these side characters don't get as much run until later seasons when you really get to explore them, like Adam or Travis or Adalola or other characters, right? But really, the side plots that I was really invested in and had a good time with were mostly Detrick and Nicole. I think Esmeralda is sort of the most unhinged version of Michael Scott that you could have. And again, it's just the Office comparisons that are out there. And it's sort of hard to ignore that, and that's totally fine. And obviously, of course, Mayor and Ned himself. I wasn't a big fan of Ken, honestly. I think that Ken, he kind of grew on me a little bit more towards the end of the season, but he was just sort of annoying to me for most of the runtime of the show. But again, you know, these characters are just sort of finding their footing, and I have a feeling that Ken will grow to be a character that a lot of us will really like as the show develops. And I'm really excited to see how the show develops as well. I like that this is about journalism. I like that there's a really fun bent about finding stories and news articles and things like that. I had a really good time, you know. Every episode I watch, there's a kind of warmth in these episodes as well, where you really are reminded of the experience of watching The Office again and what that was like for the first time. It's so rare to watch a sitcom for the first time again and really enjoy it, because sitcoms just aren't made like this. And so if we get new seasons of The Paper every year, every other year, every 18 months, I would be so happy, so thrilled with that. I think Domhnall Gleeson does a great job as Ned Sampson. It's a role I have hardly seen him in. I know him from the pop culture franchises, Harry Potter and Star Wars, but this is a role he thrives in. I have one bit of concern, though, for this show. One bit of concern. And that is Ned and Mayor. Not because I don't like them. I actually was really invested in their quote-unquote relationship. I know that it's sort of a will they, won't they, and it's classic sitcom, right? I was quite invested in that. I feel like, and I don't know, we're not going to know until we see how the arc of the show plays out. I feel like they rushed it a little bit, right? Jim and Pam took until the end of season 2. And mind you, right? Season 2 of The Office was 20-something episodes. Season 1 was obviously 6, so it's almost 30 episodes to get there. This first season of The Paper, 10 episodes. Ross and Rachel didn't get together until season 4, right? I don't know. Did they rush it by having them kiss and having the storyline sort of play out and kind of reach a conclusion? Because again, there are very interesting ways where this can go, because obviously there's now conflicts of interest, and it's obviously going to be a big problem because Ned is her boss, and how does that work and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there are really fascinating avenues that you can explore in that way. And I totally, I'm intrigued by that. But just in terms of ramping up the relationship, was it too fast? I don't know. I really don't know. If this was a one and done season, great. I think it's fun. It's exciting. But just thinking about this as hoping to be a show that goes on for 5, 6, 7 seasons, I wonder where you could go from there. Perhaps this is a question you just shouldn't think about right now, because the first season, I really enjoyed it. And that's great. Just think about one season at a time. Or maybe this is something that will kind of play itself out as the seasons go, and it'll be totally fine. Or maybe it's something to think about, something to monitor. It's just one thing that I was thinking about towards the end of this show. Anyways, guys, I really enjoyed the paper. It brought me back to great memories of watching The Office. It brought, again, just that warmth and depth of character and funniness and laughs and all that kind of stuff. It was great. I had a really good time. Did you watch the paper, guys? Did you enjoy it? And if so, what was your favorite part? Who was your favorite character? Who were your favorite pairings of characters? Let me know in the comments down below.